Hey guys, it's Scott here with a couple of tips to help you get started in Dark Souls 3 PvP. Let's get started with number 1, probably the most obvious, but hey, some people still don't know. Hyper armor is a term that's been around fighting games for a long time, but in the context of Dark Souls, it basically just means when you're swinging a big weapon, you're more resistant to being stunned. Now, there are specific timings when the actual hyper armor activates, and not all weapons have hyper armor. Now, I could spend a really long time talking about exactly which weapons have what hyper armor, and when the active frames start, and how long they last, and all that stuff, but considering this is a summary video and not going in depth into that, and I'm sure someone will make a video very similar to that if I don't do it myself. Basically, as it stands, if you're using a big weapon, don't be afraid to trade against smaller weapons, because you won't get stunned, and they will get stunned. This is not always true, but as soon as you're actually hitting the halfway point of your attack animation, you become very resistant, if not completely immune to player stun. So definitely keep that in mind, and don't be afraid to be aggressive against the little rapier user. And if you are trying to trade with small weapons, remember to trade with them once you're about halfway through your attack animation, because if you're just starting it up, you actually will get stunned. So it's a little bit of prediction, almost like parrying, but if you're trading once your animation's already begun, you're definitely going to out-trade them. So, sad story about this next tip. It was day 2 of release, and I was in my first fight club ever, and I had like a 27 win streak going, or something ridiculous like that. And then I died to this, because I didn't know what it was, and now I will impart my wisdom and sadness onto you, so you don't make the same mistakes I did as a youngster. But basically, in this game, pivoting is very scary and dangerous. In the other Souls games, you could sprint at someone and immediately turn around and then immediately roll away. In this game, if you sprint at someone and you turn around, you will enter this very long pivot animation that lasts about a full second, during which you can do absolutely nothing. You cannot perform any actions whatsoever. You just sort of stand there and turn around. It's really, really much longer than you would think it would be, especially in PvP. The also bad thing is you take counter damage when you're in this animation too, so not only can you not function, but you take severe bonus damage as well. Basically, pivoting, very, very scary. This one is quickly becoming more wide known, so I'll talk about it for about 20 seconds. Basically, if you do a jumping attack, and you have a weapon in one hand while you're doing it, and then you press R1 after the jump attack, you'll do a rolling attack instead of a standard R1. Here's the jumping attack with the follow-up roll attack, and then the standard R1 is right here. So, useful for tricking opponents, but sometimes if they see you do a jump attack, they'll know that's coming too, so watch how often you use this trick. Use jumping attacks very sparingly in Dark Souls 3's PvP. They have very minimal tracking, which means you're not going to follow the opponent if he moves at all. So you're pretty much going to jump directly in a straight line. The attacks are very, very slow and have a very long recovery. And also while you're in the air, not only can you be stunned out of the air from basically any weapon, but you also take counter damage during the entire jumping animation. So it's a really risky maneuver. And finally, the slow recovery time of jumping attacks leaves you wide open to backstab, so use them very, very sparingly. A great time to use it would be if you know someone is going to attempt to parry, because jump attacks are unparryable. But other than that, use them as infrequently as you can, because more often than not, you're either going to get counter hit or backstab, so they're not safe at all to do. A lot of weapon arts in Dark Souls 3 look really cool, but they're really hard to hit opponents with in PvP. However, if you R1 an opponent, a lot of weapons have the ability to chain an R1 into their own weapon art. I know for a fact a lot of halberds can do this. The glaive can do an R1 into an L2. I know the Black Knight Great Axe, while buffed, can do an R1 into an R2, while the R2 is modified by your battle art. So there are a lot of different combinations you can do other than just simply using an L2 attack plainly. The time of stun from the initial R1 is often long enough to guarantee a battle art hit. This does not work on all weapons, but there are definitely a whole bunch, and you should definitely experiment and try it out, because you can get an extremely high damage combo with this trick. In Dark Souls 3, rolling costs way less stamina than it used to. This might make you think that roll punishes are a lot harder than they used to be, and it's kind of true, but you still can definitely do that, so it's the basic technique that's worked in all the Souls games, but you don't really want to swing when it's going to hit your opponent. You want to swing when it's going to hit your opponent coming out of a roll. And since rolling is way more prevalent now, since it barely costs anything, you need to utilize this technique way more and have your timings way more exact. Otherwise, you will miss the roll punish. That's it for now, guys. I could have gone over a couple of other things, like 360-degree parry bubbles, parry timings, all that stuff, but people have already covered that, and I don't want to make redundant videos, so thanks for watching, guys, and I will hopefully have some more stuff for you soon. I would hope, unless I die, which would kind of suck, I guess.